our fuel pump base in, but we didn't have the right bolt, so we gotta go grab one. Now, when you install this thing, you're going to meet some resistance. It doesn't feel like it's sitting flush. That's because the that cam that comes down the arm has to be forced into place a little bit, depending on where it's sitting on the drive. So when we put our back bolt in and we start pulling down evenly, that'll go ahead and actuate the lever and seat it where it needs to be. So we got to run in there, and we're going to pick up a bolt and then come back and get this finished up, at least as far as the install goes, and then we'll go ahead and get our lines put on. Be really nice to get the flexible line that goes on the intake for the fuel pump, and then I'll be making a new line to the carb, which we have to install next. So I'll probably wait on the line so we get the carb in, and then I can go ahead and get a new line put together and put in. If you'll see here, there's no oil line. There was never an oil line on this to the gauge, and I do have all the lines and I have the connections and stuff. So when we do some things to the dashboard, we'll go ahead and get that hooked up. The wiring harness that I purchased, brand new, I don't like. I have an original harness. At least the dash harness. I'm going to put the original dash harness in. The harness to the rear of the track is fine. There's no issues with that. But the harness underneath the dash, I'm not pleased with it. It's made by a company that makes a lot of wiring harnesses for folks. I don't want to bash anybody, but the numbering system they use doesn't really correspond or match up to their diagram. By using the original wire harness, all the colors and everything will match up for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I've been frustrated with some things underneath the dash. I'm not sure where these wires go. It's not clear, and it just doesn't sync up. So I'm just going to use the original. So once we get the front clip done, we'll go ahead and we'll tear into the dash. I might actually take the bonnet off up here, see how much of a chore that is, because you can sure get at things a lot easier. But so that's one thing I need to get hooked up, is the oil sending unit. Alright, we've got 3 or 4 lines on. Get your 2 vacuum lines, one for the going to the manifold on the right, the other one on the left going to the wiper. I've got to get the brackets on the side there to tighten it down. We also have our main fuel line. Let me get the camera on here. Main fuel line on the flexible hose coming in. When I started this project, there was no hose there to speak of. There was just a steel line, and it was the wrong line, so we've corrected that. Let's go down below. I'll show you what we did down there. Alright, so we installed our new line back into our bracket. Fuel line on the top, wiring harness on the bottom. Wiring harness, we had to take all that apart, pull it back out because it was actually routed the incorrect way. We've got our fuel filter into place here. A couple new lines there. That one line was broken when I got this thing, and I just put a piece of hose on it. I may make a new line for that. So we're to the point now. You saw them if you watch my other videos. All these old markings here, they marked all the Zerk fittings. I'm going to, of course, clean all that up and remark every Zerk fitting down here. Also, any fittings for the differential or anything like that should be marked red because that's oil. There's my new master cylinder into place. and my rebuilt Hydrovac Generation 3, which is what was put on here in 1952 on a rebuild. My wiring harness is into place. And that there, sorry, let me get the light around here. That's your electric brake controller. Gone through all the linkage. That's all freed up and works nicely. So that's pretty much it. New disc brakes. Went through all this. You can see a lot of old grease up there where I greased it. I went ahead and pulled my transfer case out and had to remove all my my drive shaft. So there's new cotter pins into all that, and all that was gone through. Differentials, everything's been checked up there on the lube. So yeah, the transfer case works now. So, what's left to do? I've got to make a new fuel line for that runs from the pump to the carburetor, and I've got to install the carb. I just wanted to give you an update of where we're at right now. So, I'm going to go ahead and I get this generator off here and stashed away, and then I can go ahead and get the carb put on, and then make a new pump. A new line for the from the pump up and through the carburetor. Actually, that line will, you can see the vacuum line that'll have a its own bracket right in that position. So slowly but surely. What do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's where we're at. Anyway. You can see all my grease stuff marked up down there, and of course the steering box gets red because it's oil. So my original plate, serial number, which I've never really taken a really hard look at that. I'm not sure how much that should match the serial number on the data plate. Generally with Jeeps and stuff, the engines are in the same serial number realm as the on the engine. The same one is generally on the data plate, and that's in that neighborhood. There may be a couple of months manufacturing date. You know, the engine could be sitting for a couple of months before it's pulled on to the line. But anyway, that's where we're at. Okay, later. Alright, carb's installed. I actually am missing the nut for my... I have coarse nuts that size, but I don't have any fine ones, so I'm going to have to scarf one up. I'm bending my line and getting that all set up onto the pump side. But actually, it's cold out here, and I'm going to call it a day. So what I have to do tomorrow is get my nut, get the throttle linkage hooked up. Clutch hook, the choke hookup is great, works fine, closes nicely. And then I want to change the fitting on my pump, and I'm going to adjust this so it's down a little further, so I can bring my line. I don't want to be having the line over my wires. I want to have it underneath. So I'm going to finish that up tomorrow. Heck of a difference between the carburetor gasket here and the one with the new kit. That's about 3 times, maybe 4 times the thickness. I actually kind of like that because it seats up a little bit better for any unevenness in the castings. All right, we've got this all put together now. So let's do a quick recap on what we did to finish this up. We've got our new fuel line formed up, tied in. We went with a 90-degree angle instead of a offset angle. So basically what I did is let's see, what did I do with my goodies here? I actually put one of these in instead of an angled end. So on the other side, the carb side, we pulled fuel all the way up. Check for leaks. We had one leak down underneath a new line, and basically I had to switch the end out. The nut was just not long enough to fit into the opening. You know, you have a shorter nut or a longer, and I went with a longer one. We're all tied in here. My accelerator pump works very nicely now. It was very sloppy before, and not as functional as I wanted. Choke works great. The only thing I have not hooked up is my throttle. My throttle cable is dragged quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out and then soak it and get it cleaned up. I don't want to replace it. I did put a clear coat enamel, a clear coat just on the outside of everything here before I put my fittings in. Just kind of keep it cleaner or easier to clean off. I did the same thing with the fuel and vacuum pump. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed the install show, so to speak. And thank you for joining me. Please subscribe and just let others know if they're interested. They don't have to be a half-track owner. They just might find this interesting. It's a unique vehicle. So, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.